time to get going with this video. I didn't plan to do one, but I feel triggered. Triggered in a way that is a bit mentally, emotionally unsettling. You know, I'm always playing around and I'm always one for a good time. But I was just looking at the video that I think she's the ex-wife of DMX, Roxanne Shante or something like that. And that video triggered me. I can't even understand why it triggered me in that way. I mean, I think it's because it just took me back. It took me back to my start in this field of mental health, behavioral health, that's just been like the stepchild of the health system that nobody ever seemed to care enough about. I got started in this profession in New York City in the foster care system, child welfare. And that lady was talking about being in the foster care system and her experiences in that system. And I think she alluded to DMX also being in the system. At least that's what I think I got. You know, I used to call it the monster. That's what I call the foster care system, the monster. Because for me, I just saw it as the most scary system for kids. And I mean, I know it's set up to do good. It's set up to, the purpose is to take care of kids, right? Kids who, for whatever reasons, their parents, whether they died, whether they deserted them, abandoned them, whatever, this system is to take care of them, to protect them. Oh my God, oftentimes it was the reverse. I mean, it's like a horror story. And that, listening to her just triggered me. Oh my God. You know, I remember one day, and I was in the Bed-Stuy community in Brooklyn. And I remember a young boy, they brought in this young kid, his foster parent was burning him when he tried to get food. I just could never make sense of that. Even if you didn't want to give him food, why burn him? And this kid came in, they brought him into the office, and he just walked straight into my desk was to the back. He walked straight into the office and came right at me and sat in my lap. I never forget that boy. I've always had kind of a regret, like I felt I should have adopted that kid. He was a beautiful little boy. I was a single parent myself at the time. And, you know, I wasn't trying to have more kids, but I've always, in the back of my mind, felt like Donnie, you should have adopted that kid. But anyway, you know, working in this system opened my eyes to many things. I mean, I think people become foster parents for good reasons. You know, they want to be good parents. They want to show kids love. But there's a lot of bad apples in there, and they go into the system not understanding the damage that they do to kids. And I think that's why I left child welfare, is because I just couldn't be in a system where I saw all those abuses. Even the social workers themselves at times just weren't stepping up and doing the right thing. Or you see foster parents just in there to collect a check, you know. this Roxanne Shante woman talked about the abuses she experienced in the system. And what I think another part of what triggered me was she didn't say it. I think she kind of alluded to it, that DMX himself had his experiences. And can I tell y'all something we don't talk about? We don't talk about homosexuality and rape of young boys by other males in the hood. I'm just gonna put it out there for y'all. It's not something we talk about in the Black community. We don't really talk about at all, really. A lot of young Black boys in the depressed communities, oppressed communities, are exploited by older Black boys, older Black males, whether friends, uncles, whatever. It happens. I came to learn from working in the prison system. I was shocked at how frequently many of those boys had those experiences. You know, I remember one guy at night, I mean, he was in tears, crying because he said, you know, from the age of 4, his mom was a crack addict. He didn't know his dad. And his mom pretty much used to leave him and his sister abandoned in the house without food and whatever. And the neighbor's son, he said he was 4, the neighbor's son was 11, and that boy pretty much took him in and parented him, gave him food, would get clothes for him. He said, I don't know where he used to get the money to get clothes or anything. He said, and he would let me sleep with him in his bed. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, he took me in. I was like his. I slept in his bed. He said to me, he had a girlfriend, but when he came home in the evening at night, he was with me. Can you imagine that? I said, so where were the parents? He said, the parents were at the house, the boy's parents. And you cannot tell me that the parents didn't know. And this guy's, as an adult, his dilemma now was that here he was just always in these relationships with other males who were married. And it was perplexing for him because he thought, well, okay, so, you know, I don't want to be in a same-sex relationship, but even if I am, why am I always in same-sex relationships with men who are married? Typically, these men have wives, you know, and he was distraught. He was distressed, you know, and I remember him and I sitting there that night trying to just, he was just trying to make sense of his life, and just an abused kid, now an adult suffering from that abuse. I can recall one night, we pretty much wrapped up for the night in the triage, triaging all the inmates that were coming in, and they call it and say, oh, one more, we got one more. Just as I was walking out the door, and this man comes in, handsome man, where I can tell from the way he talked, educated, and I'm going through doing the clinical interview and all this, and he says, and I asked a question about history of physical sexual abuse, and he didn't respond. And I left it. I went on to the other questions, but I came back and I asked the question again, and he paused. He didn't respond for a little bit. And then he answered in the affirmative that, yes, he had a history of sexual abuse. This man, he said, I don't even know why I'm telling you this. He said, I have been in therapy over the years with all kinds of people, and I have never told anybody this, but something is making me say to you, I couldn't imagine what he was going to tell me about his story of being sexually abused by an uncle and shooting and killing that uncle. And just the whole world of madness that resulted from that. So that he's gone on to college, reputable college, has children, at least one child of his own. And he said the demons that he wrestled with, he just couldn't seem to move past. So he was in there for, I think, possession of cocaine or whatever it was. You know, and I said, well, why? He says, sometimes the demons in my head are so bad. The only way I could quiet them is when I use. And so when that sister talked, she just kind of took me right there, right there, with this whole DMX and overdosing, that you don't know the demons in a man's mind. You know, that's a Kirk Franklin song. We really don't know the demons that people wrestle with. You know, I try to keep faith that humanity isn't all bad, but I have worked on the side of the fence where it's a lot of bad. It's a lot of bad, and it takes a lot to hold on to your sanity and to wrestle you yourself as a clinician, to wrestle with making sense of just all you hear and see, you know, and to be able to help people even make sense of it. Sometimes there's no way to make sense of it, you know. But here am I talking about this because this sister just touched me. She triggered me. I mean, she brought me to tears when I remember some of these stories that I've seen and heard in the system, you know. Back then, when I entered the foster care system in New York, it was over 60,000 kids in foster care. 60,000 kids in the foster care system in New York State alone. Jersey has even more. I looked at the stats just a little while to see overall in the US, over 424,000 kids in the foster care system. We are failing our kids. We are failing our kids. And I don't know, I don't have the answers. I just know that when you see kids out there needing support or needing help, you have to be willing to step in and help them. You know, we have to step outside of ourselves and get involved in helping kids. You know, they're the most innocent, beautiful little beings, and when they get destroyed at an early age, you know, we're just kind of relegating them to a life of hell, and that's tough to know and live with. I mean, and I know there's a lot of hardworking people out there doing their best, their darnest for kids. Trust me, there are a lot of people out there. But there's some bad apples. And those bad apples have done a lot of damage, you know. I always like to explore the childhood of people I work with, because you go to the childhood and you can get the story of the adult. You know what I'm saying? The childhood tells you who that adult is. oftentimes. Oof. I needed to get that off my chest. I needed to get that off my chest. I feel so sad for what may have happened in the system to DMX and to other kids. And we gotta do better by kids. I don't know what capacity you have, but any opportunity to help a child, we gotta do it. We have to step up and do it. That's it. That's my spiel.